We are in mid-March almost, and we are only about 3 months away from the first Democratic primary debate, maybe a little bit less, actually. So this is where we're headed, and it should be interesting. And here is an example of what won't be terribly interesting, although I think maybe this is, I mean, it is... I've said this for some time, but it really is amazing. And we're going to have to wait and see, what happens. And hopefully after 2020, we'll be able to test this proposition when we have the Democrats having governmental control of both houses and the presidency. We're not living in an era, I think, where having the House and the presidency is necessarily going to help. And we saw this in the last term, I think, of Obama, where at the very least the rhetoric changed in the Senate and in the House caucuses to a certain extent. We saw the expansion of Social Security being voted on in a non-binding resolution, of course. But we saw all the caucus members in the Senate vote to expand Social Security, a dramatic turn from where we were just 7-8 years earlier, I should say. And in the Democratic Party, the rhetoric, at least, like I say, we've yet to see, but today, maybe I think it's today or tomorrow, we will see the House vote to make D.C. the 51st state. The rhetoric has not only become more partisan, less deferential by Democrats, not across the board, but broadly, and also to the left, to the extent that the sort of moderate conservative who jumps in the race when he goes on Morning Joe, John Hickenlooper, the champion of fracking, is afraid to say he's capitalist. Here is John Hickenlooper with Joe Scarborough. This is pretty funny.
And it really is getting people together, getting them to lay down their weapons, and then getting stuff done. And the labels, I think most Democrats don't care as much about the labels.
Well, would you call yourself a proud capitalist?
Oh, I don't know. Again, the labels, I'm not sure any of them fit. But I do believe that, that ability to look at, climate change and figure out how are we really going to create a sense of urgency and get people together. What we did with methane is one of the worst climate pollutants that there is. And, we're the first state and so far the only state to really address it aggressively.
Right. Let me ask you I'll break it down even more. Do you consider yourself a capitalist?
Well, again, the labels, I'm a small business person, so that part of the system that you would call capitalist, I get it. I understand it. I worked very hard. When you open your own business, when we first signed the lease in lower downtown Denver to build our brew pub, it was $1 per square foot per year. I mean, that is, if you haven't ever signed one of those leases, that rent is almost free. And it reflects how bad and how abandoned that part of the community was. We worked 70, 80, 90 hours a week to build the business, and we worked with the other business owners in lower down to help them build their business. Is that capitalism? I guess. I mean, sure. So in that sense of building community, that's one way to do it, one aspect of it. It's not all that it is, right? I served on 42 nonprofit boards and committees in that same 12-year period.
Right. Well, so do you consider yourself a capitalist, and does capitalism work?
Well, I think...
Fonzie, wait a second. It's just like they're both so confused here. They're both like, wait a second, what? He's got to ask this question 3 times? Like, he's literally getting, there's no doubt in my mind that the producer's going, wait, Joe, ask him. Why won't he answer that question? That's supposed to be the softball question, right? Wait, just go back a little bit. It's so funny because it really is. It's almost as if Hickenlooper was just going What's the question? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just looking at some polling here. What is the, like, he clearly has seen there has been some internal poll where they basically just said, hey, nobody's ever going to ask you this, but just don't say you're a proud capitalist. And then just coincidentally, he gets asked it. And they're both just completely confused as to why they're having this conversation. Continue.
Boards and committees in that same 12-year period.
Right. Well, so do you consider yourself a capitalist, and does capitalism work?
Well, I think I don't look at myself with a label. And I certainly think that small business is part of the solution. I think right now, the way capitalism is working in the United States, it's not doing what it once did. It's really not providing security and opportunity for the middle class and for poor people.
Wow.
I
wow.
just love that.
Just,
It's just the same disingenuousness. A couple years ago, that guy was talking to a progressive audience, and people were trying to get him to commit to probably even really minimal things, because his record as governor of Colorado was quite conservative. And he was probably like, well, you know, if you want to call that progressive, create an opportunity for
Right,
people.
exactly.
And now he's doing the same nonsense to Joe Scarborough's capitalism propaganda.
If expanding Social Security and providing single-payer health care insurance to every American is capitalism, sure, I'm a capitalist then.
If tracking to Nicaragua to have solidarity with the Sandinistas makes me a capitalist, then I don't flinch from that label, Joe.
If nationalizing the refining capacity of the United States as well as the banks is capitalism, then I'm a capitalist, Joe.
If holding the criminal CEOs of fossil fuel companies accountable while nationalizing their assets makes me pro-free market, then, you know, I certainly wouldn't flinch from that label, Joe. I think we need to come together, common sense solutions, public-private partnerships.
Re-education camps, just teaching people a new set of way of doing things is capitalism, then shoe fits.
Sending Don Jr. to do a little bit of manual labor because he's part of the bourgeoisie class that has destroyed not only this country but the entire planet makes me a capitalist, Joe. Then sure, I think we get too fixated on labels.
That's just fascinating to me. But I mean, that is just that is polling. That is polling, just like internal polling. Just the bones are showing a little bit too much there.
This does seem like a good chance to put out some sort of PSA to define what a capitalist actually is, which is not nearly as subjective as they're making it out to be in this clip, right? Like, a capitalist is a boss or a property owner who, makes money off of the working class. So he did answer the question, like, really, in several different ways when he's like, yes, I am a small business owner. Like, yes. So the answer is yes, you are a capitalist.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was pretty obvious. That he is. It's just he won't. He's
trying to poll at 3% instead of 0.5%.
Right. He's got to get into that debate. I just love the idea of, like, within 10 seconds of being asked if you're a capitalist, you're talking about controlling methane.
That was all. I just so hope that Marianne Williamson and Andrew Yang are on that stage and not John Hickenlooper.
Folks.